Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Omer Azhar, and you're watching Quews News from London studios. As Pakistan heads into a stormy election, significant doubts have been cast over the credibility and legitimacy of elections 2024. This not least because one of the largest political parties in the country, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, has been stripped of its long-standing election symbol, the bat, and its leader, Imran Khan, currently languishing in jail. Amidst these concerns, one party is currently head and shoulders above all else, and that is the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. The PMLN is currently being tipped to be the single largest party come 8th of February, and per national scale intention voting polls conducted by Gallup and IPOR, the PMLN is expected to win the largest number of seats in the National Assembly. And it is for this reason that we have decided to discuss what the PMLN brings to the table as a political party and whether they have a manifesto that can resolve Pakistan's problems. More importantly, the theme of our discussion today will be whether elections 2024 will be a source of stability or further instability for the fragile state of Pakistan. To discuss this and more, I'm joined today by ex-Governor Sindh, ex-Minister for Privatization, and a key member of the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, Mohammad Zubair from Karachi. Zubair, it's a pleasure to have you on the show with us today. How are things in your hometown?
The hometown is not really into election mode as yet. I mean, compared to the way electoral politics has been run in Pakistan over the last many decades.
Yeah.
And I have followed since 1988, definitely. So those were different times. This year, you hardly see the flags or banners or anything like that, at least in Karachi. There is, obviously, MQM is making its mark every day. They're showing their strength. The People's Party has started also as well. But really, when we compare to the past in the context of electoral politics, it's not really there.
So it seems like election activity is a bit on the deadbeat at the moment, which brings me to the all-important question, Zubair Saab, which is, will elections 2024 be a source of stability or instability for Pakistan? And in that context, I would like to ask you, what in your view is the biggest challenge for whichever party comes into power after the 8th of February?
I mean, by far, the biggest challenge is on the economy side. There is no doubt about that. Obviously, other challenges which are linked to economic development includes obviously foreign policy, how well we conduct a foreign policy, especially in relations with the neighbors. They all contribute towards economic prosperity or otherwise. So economic challenges remain by far the biggest challenge for this government, and for Mr. Nawaz Sharif is perhaps seen by many experts that Mr. Nawaz Sharif will be the fourth time Prime Minister. And the 3 times he has been the Prime Minister, I think there were challenges. Pakistan has never been without serious economic challenges. This time, this is far more serious. And I would like to obviously focus on economic challenges, but before that, why it is far more serious is basically also due to the fact that Pakistan is a polarized society today than it ever has been. Obviously, in UK or Western Europe or wherever we have democracies, there are serious conflicts between different political parties. But the kind of polarization that Pakistan faces today is more serious. So without an inclusive participation of all segments of the society, achieving any kind of economic prosperity is not really there. And I am basically talking about the polarization that exists today between those forces which supports PTI or the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, especially post May 9th. So it's not just about how to deal with them from rule of law. Pakistan also needs a healing process. And that's extremely important because we want to bring back those segments which are, say, very anti-PMLN or PPP or Jamaat Islami, and so on and so forth. And those are also very educated middle class urbanites as well. So you can't just hope to achieve economic prosperity without including their participation. I mean, they can continue to have faith in their own party, in their own party leadership, but they can't remain on the sidelines with no serious concern for the future of Pakistan. So that's extremely important. That has to be the number one priority for whichever a party forms a government or a coalition government.
But so you talk about the necessity of a healing process to be in place, but Zubair Saab, look at it in a deeper manner. On one hand, you've got the Baloch who are coming out in big numbers asking for enforced disappearances to end and for missing persons to be released. On the other, you have one of the largest political parties, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, currently facing a disproportionate crackdown after the 9th of May. Their leader is languishing in jail. Their party has been stripped of their long-standing election symbol, the bat. The urban chattering classes, the urban middle classes, the rural youth, for example. These are all sections of society that are at this point in time not really buying into the political process, it seems. So when you talk about a healing process and when you talk about the need for unification, how does PMLN envision making that possible or turning that into reality if they come into power after the 8th of February?
I think that's what I was talking about. It's not just about to deal with those segments. Now I'm talking about the PTI supporters who are either languishing in jails or facing charges and so on and so forth. It's not just about applying the rule of law. It has to be seen that there is a healing process which reaches out to them. And I mean, whoever has committed things beyond what was required on the main line or afterwards or before that needs to be given the judicial process which is free, fair, and seen as just. And there are other segments like you just mentioned, the Baloch missing persons case. Recently, Islamabad saw a sit-in for about a month or so. They've gone back. But the issue is not gone. The issue is very much there. So for any party, if PMLN comes into power, they have to reach out to them and reach out to them in the manner which is convincing, which is basically listening to them, understanding their concerns, and then trying to solve this problem, not just for now, but on a permanent basis. Pakistan has a constitution, and that constitution, every segment of the society, every institution, every political party is committed to that constitution. There's no one, except for minor things here and there, that 18th Amendment needs some changes in. But as a macro thing, everyone believes that our constitution does provide solution to every challenge or every question, whether you're talking about missing persons, whether those who are involved in activities which are not considered conducive to rule of law or whatever. So if you have a constitution, that has to be applied, and no one can be allowed to do things which are beyond the mandate of the constitution. Then you are accepting a general law, and I don't think so Pakistan can achieve economic prosperity without ensuring that everyone is committed to the constitution. And that constitution is basically, because, I mean, Umar, for example, if I and you know that I and you do not have the protection of the fundamental rights as given in the constitution, then, I mean, anything can happen to us. What I am speaking now can be seen as something not very positive, for example. You recently saw, in fact, only yesterday or day before yesterday, 47 journalists and YouTubers, as they say, have been given notices, of which I'm very happy that Justice Faiz Issa, the Chief Justice, has taken notice. And they include mainstream journalists, some of the top television anchors and others who are basically known to raise voice when the country obviously is living in an atmosphere where we are living in, like people like Asad Tur or Matiullah Jan, or even, if I'm not wrong, some of the anchors like Shehzad Iqbal and so on and so forth. So I think Pakistan needs to be soft basically and has to demonstrate that we need no need to be reminded. I mean, some people tell us that what is Modi doing in India is as brutal as anything else. First, I don't support that logic of Mr. Modi going brutal against Muslims or any other community for that matter. And we are talking about Pakistan. So whatever happens in India is their internal affair. Although we can criticize Mr. Modi and his government for being harsh, extremely harsh with the other segments of the society, it might buy him the votes. But we are talking about our Pakistan, and our Pakistan needs fundamental rights to be enjoyed by everyone. This is the thing that we have chosen. Constitution of 1973, as it exists today, is the one that everyone is committed to, and we must ensure that it is applied, especially with regard to the missing person. Just a word on that. I don't think so. This because as governor, when I was governor, I did face many parents who came to me, and it's difficult to see how the mothers or the sisters or daughters, for that matter, are facing this issue, and we must resolve it for once and for all.
Okay, so, well, you've encapsulated that very well. The fact that it is very quintessential to stick to the Constitution of 1973, which ultimately would result in resolution of most of our problems. Zubair sir, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll get back to you shortly. So, Zubair sir, before I move on to the all-important questions around the economy, do you think that if your party comes into power on the back of what many are claiming to be a very discredited and delegitimized election, will it be possible for your party to unite the nation and reach out to political stakeholders in multiple segments of society? We've seen in the past, and precedents are right there for us to see when an election happens and a big segment of the political class does not buy into that process. That only leads to more disunity and more, wrangling within power corridors. Will your party be able to initiate that process and, take it to its conclusive end?
That's very important. I think this is a fundamental question why Pakistan, or for that matter, any democracy, needs a free, fair, and transparent elections. Unfortunately, Pakistan's electoral history has not been very good. I think, except for 3 elections that in my view, were largely free and fair. One was 1970, the first elections. Forget what was the end result of that, but it was largely free and fair, and everyone agrees to that. And I think after that 2008 elections in which People's Party won, and I say this because President Musharraf was the president when the elections 2008 took place, and we know his views about the 2 major political parties which he had announced that their history now, Pakistan People's Party and PMLN, and he did everything to destroy them, creating patriots out of People's Party and Q League out of PMLN. Yet the 2 parties won handsomely in the 2008 election. So I would say that they were largely free and fair. And then the 2013 elections, and simply because of the gap between the first and the second party, obviously Imran Khan did complain and took out dharna and everything to protest against the electoral injustices during the 2013 elections. But one party, after the reserve seats were included, PMLN got 186 seats. PTI got 33 or 34 seats. I mean, there was no comparison. I mean, even if you were to give him the 4 seats that he wanted in any case. And none of the other elections have been free and fair, and that has largely contributed to Pakistan's economic problems, because obviously if the electoral process is not credible, people do not accept the results. And this is not unique. I mean, Western Europe, US, everywhere else, even in India, which is our neighbor, they have been able to conduct free, fair, and transparent elections. And that's what Pakistan needs. Whether Pakistan is having free and fair elections, there are question marks. And I hope once the electoral process is complete and ends, Pakistan can move ahead rather than go back to question the credibility of the electoral process, which in my view today, it will happen. And that will put more burden on the party which forms a government to reach out to those segments and to convince them that the electoral process was indeed largely free and fair. Obviously, there are issues that happens every time, and then how to convince them and then take the country out of the economic crisis that Pakistan is facing.
No, I absolutely agree with you as far as the smooth transition of power is concerned. It really does form the bedrock of any democracy. And we saw, as youngsters, we saw the election 2008 and 2013 were conducted in a largely free and fair manner. And the transition from one government to the other was also quite smooth, which unfortunately faltered again after 2018. Well, that brings me on to your area of expertise and your area of technical expertise, so to say, Zubair Saab, the economy of Pakistan and the challenges it faces. Now, let me begin by sketching a picture for you. The man being tipped to be the PMLN's finance minister, Ishaq Dar Saab, is very big on having an artificially sustained rupee, in using reserves to boost the rupee, in having a fixed exchange rate policy. We've also seen in the past that your efforts as privatization minister were not sabotaged, I'd say, but subdued by the same man in question when privatization for PIA, LESCO and the steel mill was to go ahead. So my question to you is, when PMLN comes into power, what should be their stance on A, privatization, and two, the exchange rate?
First thing, let me say that, like I was mentioning before, that Pakistan faces economic crisis like never before. This is the time when I actually say that Pakistan needs to initiate structural, serious reforms. Otherwise, like I say, reforms or perish. This is where Pakistan stands today. So whether it is privatization or whatever you want to do with the state enterprises, or whether you're talking about taxation or energy sector or banking sector or any other sector, Pakistan needs deep-rooted reforms, which means that unlike the benefit that we enjoyed between, say, 2013-2018 period that you mentioned about the exchange rate or about the privatization process and things that we wanted to do when we started in 2013, but for many reasons we did not undertake or complete them. That included state enterprises, how to fix them. Just for your audience, I mean, in the last 2 years, I was reading the figure 1.4 trillion or 1.5 trillion has been the losses of the state enterprises in the last 2 years only. And in a country where people are obviously not having 2 meals a day, and a large number of them, about 40% of Pakistan's population live below the poverty line. And you can imagine their state of affairs. And when they see institutions like PIA losing 100 billion annually, or a state enterprise like Pakistan Steel, which is obviously closed and is not working for more than 8.5 years now, and yet there are payments going to support the employees who are still supposed to be on the payroll today. Obviously, a normal Pakistani will question the wisdom. How can Pakistan move forward? So Pakistan has no choice but to do things and finish them. In 2013-2018 period, we started off well. We were serious about it, about the privatization process, and we obviously initiated more than 40 enterprises, which included 9 distribution companies. It included the likes of PIA, Steel Mill, and others, and several banks, for example. And the financial advisors were all appointed, and they were working for the due diligence process, which is very cumbersome according to the privatization ordinance in order to ensure transparent privatization. But when we came to the final round, and we had obviously decided that if we see the big three, in our view, were Pakistan Steel, PIA, and FASCO among the 9 distribution companies. If we were able to privatize them and hand it over to the private sector, I think the rest would come very easy. And we reached that stage, the last stage, the very last stage in October 2015. And at that time, we obviously took a U-turn, which is more famous for Mr. Imran Khan, but has been there in the regard. So I don't think so Pakistan can afford to continue to lose money from state enterprises and deprive hundreds and millions of Pakistanis from having 2 meals a day. That's just not a fair thing, because we, the elite, obviously those who will be in the parliament, those in the judiciary, in the military and business community, we don't suffer whether privatization process goes ahead, whether reforms take place, whether a taxation system is free and fair and equitable, and taxes all segments of the society, irrespective of which sector it is. I don't think so it is being fair with those who are deprived of it. And I include the middle classes, the lower middle classes, the urban educated, they all are deprived of this thing. The other thing that you mentioned about the exchange rate and the use of dollars in the market, I think Pakistan will remain under an IMF program, and a very, very strong IMF program, I fear, will be one that will come after the elections of after February elections, because this will be the 24th IMF program. And I don't think so, and I don't wish IMF to be soft with Pakistan as far as the fundamental changes that Pakistan needs to do to finally fix Pakistan and come out of the IMF program forever and ever. And they are going to restrict Pakistan. So Pakistan, whoever is the finance minister, whichever party forms the government, I don't think so they will have the option to then use dollars to sell in the market to stabilize the currency.
Yeah.
It is very clear from the IMF in the last several years that IMF wants the market to determine the exchange rate and not the other way around.
Well, hold that thought, Zubair Saab. We're going to go into our final break of the show and then get back to you with more questions. Now, Zubair Saab, you've emphasized the need for structural reform quite a bit, but surely that also involves, removing excessive subsidies handed out to sugar industries, clamping down on, electricity thieves, which, by the way, range from people living in residential houses to mega industries. Surely structural reform also requires that the FBR is emboldened to collect taxes from the trader and merchant class, which, by the way, forms a big constituency of the PMLN's vote bank. What are your thoughts on that? Would you like to share your opinion on whether all that has to go ahead?
I think I mentioned that all sectors must be taxed irrespective of which sector they belong. If I am earning 100 rupees from the agriculture sector or industrial sector or as a trader or anything, I must pay the same amount of tax because my income is the same. So why should I be exempted? And unless I hear someone who has never convinced anyone that why certain sectors should remain outside the ambit of the taxation. This is a fundamental question, because the problem, Umar, is that if those sectors are not taxed, then you have to impose indirect taxation, and you penalize the poor, whether they are buying sugar or whether they are getting petrol or they are buying wheat or whatever, because then indirect taxation, because there's a percentage of total taxes, the composition of the indirect taxes are going up, because somehow or the other we need to balance the books. We don't, but to keep the deficit as much lower as possible, although that has been going up in the manner that we never ever imagined, and it will continue to go up if you don't increase tax to GDP ratio in the manner that it should be. Umar, I'd like to take this opportunity also to point out one important segment, because when you are talking about economy, there is the other side, there is the other issue, which is the social sector, the social indicators or the human development indicators. And I think no country can develop economically unless you fix your social sector, your human development indexes. And they include fundamentally what? Education, healthcare, clean drinking water, women empowerment, population control. They are all issues, the judicial system, the fairness of the judicial system. I mean, for example, women empowerment. How can you imagine to grow economically on a sustainable basis without ensuring that women participation is there and they are encouraged without controlling your population? I mean, your population increase last year when the results were announced is 2.55%. Compare that with India, which is 0.7, Bangladesh, which is 1%. And imagine, go back to 1971. One of the reasons that led to the disintegration of Pakistan was the West Pakistanis not accepting that East Pakistan population is in majority, and we were not ready to give one man, one vote to the East Pakistanis because they form 56% of the population. And West Pakistan had 44%. Now it is the reverse. And compared to Pakistan's 25 crore, Bangladesh has 18 or 19 crore population. So, I mean, it's a ticking bomb. Also, the fact that imagine 40% of our kids below the age of 5 are not normal. They are stunted. They don't have normal growth. So, how will they contribute when they grow up? Pakistan has perhaps the largest number of out of school children, more than 26 million. So imagine, how can the country expect to fix its economy if you have such basic deficiencies in your social sector? And because the educated, the elite, in my family, for example, or your family, or anyone belonging to the elite, we are so concerned about our children that even when a kid is just 3 months old, we are concerned to get them admitted in one of the best Montessori, so that then they can go on to get admission in the best private school, which provides as good education as any in the West. So that when they grow up, and here the other segment, are we also concerned about them? Are we having sleepless nights for those 26 million Pakistanis who are not even getting into the school? Forget about those who are getting into public schools and the kind of education that they take. So I think it's not just about everyone would admit that this is an issue that we need to solve. But how many times a public leadership speaks on these subjects just to show that they are concerned? I mean, those people who are deprived, I mean, 40% I mentioned live below the poverty line. Who are they looking towards? For 70 plus years, they've been looking towards us, that we will come up with solutions for them. And that is why I always say that a foreign policy needs to ensure that we live in harmony, in peace. We have normal regional trade that leads to economic prosperity. Those who do not suffer, like I don't suffer, whether we get tomatoes for 300 rupees or possibility of getting from India for 50 rupees will be such a huge bonus for a normal Pakistani, because I will still continue to enjoy my lunch and dinner where the tomato is for 300 rupees or onion is for whatever. So this is fundamental, that when this government comes, and I just need a reminding that Mr. Nawaz Sharif was the first Prime Minister. In 1997, when he became the Prime Minister, he took that major initiative. We had to react to India's exploding the bomb because that is what the Pakistanis wanted, and we did that. And despite doing that, in May 1998, we were able to get Mr. Vajpayee, who was, just as a reminder, he was a BJP Prime Minister, to get him on bus yatra to Lahore and take him to then the historic site
that
where
was
he
a
committed
historic occasion. That indeed
that was a
historic
that
occasion.
process needs to be revived.
But then if I take you back to that historic occasion, you of all would know all too well that the then Chief of Army Staff, General Pervez Musharraf, the late General Pervez Musharraf, decided not to show up for Prime Minister Vajpayee's visit and stayed away from that ceremony, from that groundbreaking ceremony at the Minar-e-Pakistan.
Not get away. He was obviously ready to sabotage that trip.
There you go. You've laid it out.
And just as a reminder, the Lahore Declaration that was signed between Mr. Nawaz Sharif and Mr. Vajpayee in February 1999, several years later, 6 years later, General Pervez Musharraf was signing the Islamabad Peace Accord with the same Prime Minister, Mr. Vajpayee, in Islamabad,
absolutely, yeah.
which was except from full stop comma the same as was the Lahore Declaration, except for one difference, which was for the first time Pakistan was conceding, and it was mentioned in the Islamabad Declaration that Pakistan will no more support any cross-border terrorism. That was an additional thing to the Lahore Declaration. So 6 years we wasted. And then when Mr. General Musharraf was serious about opening up with India, and I think he was, when he realized that there is no other option, but look, taking it back, so much time was wasted, so much effort was wasted. Pakistan could have moved. And also for all those Pakistanis, like later in 2014, I think, or 15, I don't remember exactly, Mr. Modi came to Lahore. That was not a scheduled visit. Please, Pakistanis, understand when two countries like Pakistan and India have to resolve their issues, it has to have between two leaders who feel comfortable dealing with each other, like it happened between US and Soviet Union, like it happened between President Nixon in 1972 and Chairman Mao or Zhou Enlai of China when they opened up, like it happened between Egypt and Israel, which led to the Camp David Accord and Egyptian recognition of Israel.
Or like it happened.
Although we start to question the sincerity of the leader, whoever becomes the prime minister, I think the Pakistanis need to give him or her the right to negotiate and come out of this historic battle, which can lead to such.
Which begs you've made some brilliant points there, Zubair Sahab, but that begs the question: will a paranoid security establishment allow a PMLN government to make overtures and mend ties with India, for example? Just recently, we had the Chief of Army Staff saying publicly that reconciliation with India is out of question at the moment. Will it be possible for your party to reinitiate ties and potentially move towards an open border or greater trade and cultural integration with India?
I think it's everyone has a point of view, and the army chief also has a point of view. It's a matter that is important enough to be debated, and arguments presented from each side why it is for Pakistan to move towards regional peace, which will lead to regional trade and so on, what benefit it will bring. Obviously, any major decision that we take, there is a downside to it. There is nothing in the business world, for example, there is nothing which is 100% upside. When you take a major decision at the corporate level, there is always a downside, even at the country level. So what is the downside? What are the risks involved? How can you manage to control the risks? Because if there is upside which is far greater than the downside, then you have to manage the downside in a manner that it is controllable. So no one is questioning the wisdom that it is not so simple to move and normalize relations with India. But I think the state of affairs today certainly are at a place where things can improve from here. And I think if Mr. Nawaz Sharif becomes the Prime Minister, I know even his speech upon his return on October 21st to Lahore mentioned this critical part, which you will not find most leaders talking about. But in the 6 or 7 major points that he presented while addressing the people of Pakistan, this factor, regional peace, was mentioned. And he mentioned that no country can economically develop without dealing with its neighbors.
Well, we show hope that this does materialize. Final question, and more on a personal note, Zubair Sahab. Are we expected to see you take up a ministerial role if your party comes into power? And if no, are you continue to be a member of the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, which you've been for the past, I think, 15 years or so?
I mean, I joined Muslim League in 2012, and it has all been very good journey throughout this period. There are always ups and downs, and whether I'll be part of the team post-elections, post-elections, I can't say. If I'm offered and if it is meaningful, why not? I will accept if it is meaningful, if I can contribute towards any betterment of Pakistan, I would like to contribute. But I will surely be not away from the camera. I will be part of the Pakistani political process in one manner or another, because I think this political process has given me something that has allowed me to contribute. And I always advocate that we must debate everything in front of the people without any fear. And I could be wrong, and I want to be proved wrong. But I think without debating critical issues like this one about Pakistan-India rapprochement, or Pakistan's relations with Iran or Afghanistan or EU or US or whatever, or on the domestic front, there are very critical things that are happening. If you had read yesterday's manifesto of Pakistan Muslim League, it wants to abolish NAB, which is again something that let the other side who want to keep NAB debate, and we should listen to them. But as far as PMLN is concerned, and I think most political parties are now convinced that NAB should not be there. Likewise, all other subjects need to be debated, and we should all contribute without any fear of being targeted.
And we show hope that meaningful and constructive debate on these issues does take place on the parliament floor in the next couple of years, Zubair Saab. Thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck for the elections. Ladies and gentlemen, we were joined today by Mohammad Zubair, who was talking about the important political, economic and foreign policy issues plaguing Pakistan and what the PMLN can do as a party to resolve some of those problems. Perhaps the most important takeaway from today's discussion was that free and fair elections form the bedrock of any democracy. Only a free and fair election can ensure political continuity and economic prosperity. Therefore, we hope that saner heads prevail on the 8th of February and a more level playing field is awarded to all political parties to ensure that the electoral process is bought into by all political stakeholders, irrespective of who they are and where they are. We hope you enjoyed our today's discussion. This is Omer Azhar signing off from Quews News. We hope to see you again.